Start recording. Okay, we're live. We're here. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the daily schedule. And what we're going to be doing today, rather than the schedule that's up there, is I'm going to go ahead and do the parable of self-therapy. I'm going to go directly into the podcast, and then we're not going to work out today. So one thing I've noticed is that today, my allergies are so, intense here in North Carolina some days. And yesterday I spent some time out in the grass, with the dog, and I got bug bites all over. And last night my hands were itching. And, I don't know if anybody else gets this, but, just so you know, you can see my hand is kind of, torn up because I have a little bit of, eczema and stuff, and then it ends up scratching. So you can't really see, but there's, these little eczema bubbles popping up on my hand, which is just wonderful. Honestly, it's not a big deal. If it were a bigger deal, I would just go to an allergist and a dermatologist and get it fixed. I'll do that eventually, but just in the time of COVID, I'm just going to live with it because it doesn't bother me that much, and I don't want to be out and about, especially not at doctor's offices. And so, anyway, today, right, let's start with the parable. Now, today's parable is something that just is so useful for me, and you'll notice similarities in all of these. And the truth is that a lot of teaching parables are just versions of Plato's cave metaphor. So maybe I need to teach that one day, talk about Plato's cave metaphor. But this is just a version of Plato's cave metaphor. It's just a new rewording of it. And I'm going to take it and expand pretty aggressively on it. And crap. Well, I don't know where my Untethered Soul book is, so I'm just going to do it from memory. Because I was going to read it from the Untethered Soul. But basically, I love this book, The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. It's my favorite book. It's just incredible. It's powerful. It's got all the above. It's just amazing. And you got to just live with me because I just enjoy my Four Sigmatic mushroom coffee this morning. But anyway, here's the idea I've got for you today, which is, imagine that you live in a hospital, all right? You live in it, you got an IV drip. This is also cool because I've been watching a lot of Grey's Anatomy. But imagine you got an IV drip, your antibiotics, and you're in a hospital and you've been bedridden for 3 years. And you live in this hospital wing where everybody's been bedridden for 3 years and all your muscles are atrophied, so all your muscles are small and you can't move around and you can't really do anything but sit in the bed. But you can watch TV and you can look at your screens and stuff and you can gab with other people. You can still live a life. It's just that your whole body's atrophied, right? And then just pretend that you've lived this way always, and actually maybe you were born in this hospital. You were born with some child condition that never lets you leave the hospital, one of those extremely rare conditions. So you live here, and you've actually never known anything but the hospital. And so all you know is that you're supposed to feel a lot of pain all the time. You're supposed to be hooked up to a bunch of wires all the time. You can't move, you can't go anywhere, right? And you have no conception of any outside, right? It's just, this is life, okay? Now, if you felt that much pain and you felt that much suffering, it would be hard, wouldn't it? And you'd probably develop some resentment. But since you'd think this is the way life was meant to be, living in this hospital hooked up to these wires and stuff, you'd probably feel resentful, but you wouldn't know what to do about it. And you'd probably just gossip and get frustrated and get angry. And you might also just live through the TV or live through shows and screens, right? But then imagine that one of the people in the hospital wing is like, you know what? I'm going to recover. I'm going to start training myself so that I can be strong enough to go to the outside. And then imagine what all the other people in the hospital would do. They'd all be like, oh my God, the outside? That's not a thing. You can't go outside. You need this. You need your IV to stay alive. You need this stuff to stay alive. And the person's like, no, I think I'm going to go to the outside. I heard there were birds there and trees and sunlight and all this beautiful stuff. And then I could be a lumberjack or I could do whatever I want outside, okay? Imagine how crazy all the other people in the hospital would think you were, right? Imagine how crazy. They'd be like, are you kidding me? You're going to leave your medicine. You're going to leave all this behind, right? And so even if you have an inkling there's something outside, it's going to be very, very scary for them. And then imagine you actually go to leave the hospital, right? Imagine you go, first thing you got to do is you got to train your muscles that are atrophied. And so the first thing you would do, right, your leg muscles wouldn't be working. So you'd have to just barely sit on the edge of the bed. And when you tried to stand up, you'd be in so much pain, right? Because your legs are not used to working because you're used to just lying in bed all day. And your legs would be in so much pain. And then, the naysayers in the hospital, they'd be like, what are you doing, trying to leave? How dare you leave us, right? And the other people in the hospital, even the people who like you, would be like, Why are you doing that to yourself? Like, why are you causing yourself so much pain? Like, why would you be standing up like this? I can watch your legs shaking. You're in horrible pain. Just sit back down and watch your TV, watch your soap opera, you know? And so everyone in the hospital would be just screaming at you, like, stop, like, don't do it, right? And then imagine you're so focused on your training, you don't want to participate in the hospital drama, like, because all people do is sit there and talk about TV and gossip and talk about each other and complain about each other and complain about life, right? So then somebody complains to you, and you're like, I'm sorry, I'm just not into complaints anymore. I'm focusing on my physical therapy so I can leave this hospital, right? Because I want to go be with the birds and the bees and whatever. They're not going to hear that. They're just going to say, so you don't want to talk to me anymore. So you don't want to get involved with me anymore, right? So you, like, don't like me. And so that's another way that all this social pressure is going to come on you. And then in order for you to leave that hospital, to go out in the real world, to be healthy and happy and whole, you'd have to do months of physical therapy. And every day you'd be sitting there getting a little stronger, growing a little more, being just a little bit more intense. And yet every day people would just keep yelling at you, keep telling you, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, right? Even some experts might say don't do it. Even the doctors might say, hey, like, are you sure about this? Whatever. But you just have to keep going and going and going. And then eventually, right, you're going to get out and you're going to do your physical therapy, and then you're going to realize that if you actually leave this hospital, you are leaving all your friends, right? You're leaving everything you've ever known and going out into this new place, okay? And it's terrifying. And then you realize that not only are you going out into this new place, but you don't even know what to do in the new place, right? You heard there were birds and bees and butterflies and sunshine and rain, and you've heard about all these beautiful things, but you're like, wow, I can't just, like, go out there. Like, I don't know what to do when I get out there. And you're going to have to get over that fear, and that's going to be scary and terrifying. But eventually you go do it, and you just make your way, and you fumble and stumble, and the truth is that every little growth moment, from stretching your legs and feeling them work for the first time, to getting outside and feeling the sun for the first time, to learning how to, chop down a tree if you're going to be a lumberjack or whatever for the first time, every learning is so beautiful on the way that it keeps you going, and that you end up where you want to be. Guys, that's the metaphor of the hospital. I hope that makes sense to you. And the metaphor is just that to get out of the spin cycle of negativity in life, you have to really be disciplined and conscious, okay? You have to be, because there's going to be all those forces working up against you. Now, the funny thing is, right, that living life hooked up to a bunch of wires in a hospital is miserable. And it would be much better to just go through the pain of physical therapy and then the pain of figuring out how to live in the outside world, right? Obviously, that's a better decision. You can be happy and whole for the rest of your life. Problem is, every single person almost in this world we live in is the equivalent of that person in the hospital. They are upset, they're nervous, they're confused for all these reasons, right? And it doesn't make any sense. And so if you want to be the one that wakes up, you can't depend on anybody else to wake up with you. It's important you realize that just like if you're leaving the hospital, other people can too if they rehab themselves. But you can't force them, and you can't wait for them. You have to just get up and go. So you can't wait on anybody to grow yourself and become stronger internally. And so that's kind of my journey right now. Is every day is still painful. I'm still growing my leg muscles. I'm still outside in this new world. Like, what the heck do I do? But the truth is, it's beautiful. I feel like I'm in the sunshine every day. I feel like I'm just in this magical place where I'm just so happy. And, on previous days when I felt tired and allergies and stuff like today, I would have had to drive into work, and I would have been miserable all day, and I would have hated everyone and everything. Now I'm here recording for you guys, and I'm going to get all my stuff done really fast, and I'm going to get myself back in bed to rest, and it's going to be this wonderful, relaxing, like, smooth, easy, free-flowing day. And I want you to know that that's possible for you too. It's possible for you to have smooth, easy, free-flowing days every day. And it's going to be extremely painful as you go on your growth journey. But the beauty is that seeing that growth every day always makes the pain worth it. Again, I always compare it to the physical. That's why the hospital is such a good metaphor. Physical therapy, right? It's like, you instinctively know if you have a big physical injury, like say you tear your ACL, you don't just say, well, forget that leg, let's just chop it off. Or like, well, I guess I'll just walk with crutches my whole life, You walk with crutches a little bit, and then you do your physical therapy, and you slowly get better and better and better until you can walk again, because it's obviously the right decision. But now imagine you were in a world where every single person who's ever had an injury never healed it and always walked around with it, right? This is the kind of point Michael Singer makes in The Untethered Soul, and I'm just kind of, telling it to you. Imagine that, right? It's the groupthink of the world that's holding you back, right? It's your fear of what even the people closest to you will say. Because even imagine someone really close to you is in that hospital. They're afraid you're going to leave them behind. They're afraid you're going to hurt yourself, right? They're afraid you're crazy, a lunatic. What is this outside with these birds and bees and butterflies and sun and rain? Plus, that sounds terrible. It sounds horrible, right? You have stability here in the hospital. You have an IV drip to keep you hydrated and all this stuff. Like, what are you going to do? Go find a river for fresh water? What are you, a barbarian? And so what I want you to know is that that kind of barbarian aspect, that going and gathering and creating for yourself, is an essential part of being human. And so a lot of people miss that in modern society. They don't even act like humans, right? And part of it is developing that self-reliance and that self-growth. So I wanted to share that with you today. That's the teaching parable for today. I hope it helped, and I hope it gave you a little bit of light and encouragement and really understanding why there are all these societal factors that are holding you back from your happiness if you're a spiritual seeker. So we'll move on to the next thing.